Hello, you wonderful people. So for today's video, I'm going to talk about the topic of trailers. It's kind of interesting because I feel like a lot of people have very mixed feelings about trailers. Like a lot of times I end up hearing people say like, I hate trailers because it's like, oh, you want to see a little bit about the movie, but a lot of people feel like a lot of movies end up giving away too much of the plot. Like the first movie I really remember, well, there have been movies in the past that have done that. Like the one I've heard people talk about, in particular, like Bernie from Rooster Teeth had talked about this before, like on RT podcast. It's been a conversation that's come up before. It's like the whole like Terminator 2, like the reveal. The fact is that Arnold Schwarzenegger's character, you know, is actually a good guy in that movie. Like obviously that's a long time ago, but that's still an example of something that's like, if the trailer hadn't shown that, that would have been like a boom moment in the theaters when you first saw that movie. There are a lot more recent examples like Spider-Man Homecoming. That was a big thing I heard about it. It was like kind of like people being like, yeah, that trailer spoils a lot of that movie. Another recent example would be the Dark Phoenix trailer, in particular the second one, where some people are like, the whole potential like, oh, you literally shown you killing a character, which looking at the trailer I'm like, well, to be fair, trailers are very misleading and a lot of stuff's out of context, but I guess with the way things kind of played out, it's kind of like, it's almost like you're pretty much plainly saying is that I feel like it's a red herring, but I mean maybe it's not. Maybe it's just being like, no, straight up, this is what's happening. I guess the argument could be like, you know, it's meant to kind of show you that, oh no, there are huge stakes, like anyone can drop dead during this type of situation. That's, you know, my thought process. Because I get the point of a trailer. It's supposed to be like showing you enough in a movie to get you excited. That's kind of like the main purpose of a trailer, but it's also meant to not just get you excited. It's meant to sell a movie to you within a short amount of time. So they're going to try and throw as much as interesting stuff your way. Obviously that can backfire, and especially in a lot of movies, in particular, like what if it's a comedy or something like that? It's like, but you know, they might include some of the heavy hitting jokes and stuff like that. Some of the jokes you might even see in the trailer might not even be there, because that's an interesting aspect to it too, because it's like you take like a trailers do have a tendency to have stuff in it that they don't include, because it's like, oh, this isn't in the final cut of the movie, this was like some earlier scenes. Like I'm not all that, you know, in the know about how like a lot of stuff behind movies work, and even how like trailers are cut and stuff like that, but apparently like obviously like I've heard people talk here and there, but you know, apparently like some stuff is like early footage that they shot that they're including in a trailer. So just because it's there doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be in a movie, and even if it is in a movie, it might be different. I mean, because it's interesting, because like I think, because I've talked about this before, like in the Thor Ragnarok trailer, it's just kind of an interest. Like obviously there's some different scenes, because I guess it's because it's earlier footage, but it's like when Mjolnir gets broken in the movie, you know, Hela and Thor are in a city. I mean, no, in the trailer they're in a city, but in the actual movie they're actually in plains, you know? So not like plains, but like, you know, vast open area type of plains. And then there's also the thing about like, they show you a shot from like the final showdown where like Thor goes all, you know, god of thunder and everything, and his eyes are glowing blue and everything. But obviously I said eyes because, as we know in the movie, he lost one of his eyes. So that was kind of a little detail that maybe they went back and changed that later, or maybe that was kind of earlier footage or something. Another example kind of along those same lines is the whole Avengers Infinity War situation, because there's stuff in that trailer that's not in the movie, plus there's kind of obvious kind of lies in the movie, in the trailer, because like there's moments in like the whole Wakanda scene at the end where we see the Infinity Gauntlet, and it is kind of spoilers, but you know, the movie's been out for a while now. But the thing is, like, it only showed Thanos having 2 gems at that point, you know, when the glove's right there in front of Captain America, but we know by that point in the movie he had 5 of the 6, which that in itself is kind of interesting, because you know, you go back and you're like, oh, that's so fascinating that you would do that. Obviously you don't want to lie to your audience is a big thing, but at the same time, when you're able to keep stuff from people like that, because you'll piss people off if you do that, if you like straight up lie. I think as long as you're kind of careful of how you do that, shifting up a few details here and there, I think won't be that bad. But if you're outright lying and being like, oh yeah, like most of this trailer isn't in the movie, then that's kind of an issue. It's actually interesting too, because it's kind of interesting because certain times trailers can actually mislead you, because the way trailers are cut, obviously a lot of stuff is out of context and stuff like that, but I forgot what it was. There was a movie a little while back that like I remember it was kind of, I remember watching the trailer, I'm like, oh, it almost seems kind of like a little bit of a comedy drama. Turns out when you watch the movie, it's not really even a comedy at all. It was cut to kind of look a little comedy-ish, but it's more like a drama, and that was kind of actually kind of a slightly kind of dark movie about people dealing with like their family issues and things not really being all that fun. I don't know, it's just kind of interesting because I feel like all that kind of has to be considered when it comes to a trailer. Like I feel like obviously you want to like reach that balance of telling just enough without telling too much. Because it's interesting because TV shows I feel like have a tendency to kind of tell too much, you know, in my experience, because that's what I watch the most is TV shows. Just because TV shows, it depends on the trailer, because a lot of and the network, because some trailers and networks kind of cut theirs to be mainly stuff you'll see from pretty much the first episode. Like in a lot of cases, it kind of pretty much spoils the first episode, whether it's of a new series or a season. Like a great example would be most recently the NBC show The Enemy Within. Like I think I saw a trailer for it a while back, I don't remember, but most recently I had seen a trailer for it before the show had aired. And the nature of that show, like it's essentially kind of like, oh, this lady who's a CIA agent is kind of labeled a traitor and stuff like that. And you basically find out that there's more to that situation. I even talked about that in, I think, the watch list or whatever for that month. But the fact of the matter is, when you watch the first episode, I kind of go, oh man, I wish I didn't know that little aspect of it, because like the episode leaned into her being a traitor, so it kind of ruins it for you, knowing like, oh yeah, but I know kind of like the other angle to this. I mean, that doesn't change the fact is there could be later twists later on down the road, but that motivation right there, it probably would have hit me more to be like, oh wow, so that's what this is really about. There's been occasions where it's like I've completely misinterpreted a trailer because I thought was one thing and ended up kind of being like, oh no, that is something else entirely. Or, you know, not necessarily entirely, but just like, oh, I thought it was down this road, but it's actually going down this road with this character or this story arc or stuff like that, you know? To me, like the only time I've heard people it's kind of interesting because it's like I said, you want to show enough without showing too much, but it was kind of the whole situation with Avengers Endgame, because a lot of that is kept super tight-lipped, super secret. Is the fact is that, like, obviously, because I've heard people actually complain that the first Avengers trailer that came out, because there was like a Super Bowl ad as well, but the first trailer was like, that showed us nothing. And I'm like, because it's interesting because some people were praising it for being like the best trailer because it did show nothing, because it was mostly meant to be an emotional thing. It's kind of interesting because I think people have even gone out to say like, oh yeah, anything you see in those trailers that are promotional material, that's like within the first 15 minutes. I mean, at least with that trailer in particular. I don't know if that applies for the Super Bowl ad as well. So like I said, there's a situation where people will be like, oh, you show too little. So you know, I guess, you know, it comes down to whether it's a movie that everyone's literally biting to kind of get anything about, like an Avengers Endgame, you know, so whether it's something big like that or whether it's just kind of a smaller project that maybe you're interested in. I don't know, like I said, it all comes down to your preference, you know. And you know, I want to ask that question to you guys. How do you feel about trailers? Do you like trailers? Do you hate trailers? Is it, you know, like, what is the ratio for you? Is it like 50-50, like it's a hit or miss, like where you're like, oh, they show just enough, or oh, they show too much? Or are you one of those people who tries to avoid trailers in general just because you're scared of kind of getting spoiled on something? I never think like that. Like, I mean, because I think because of my short attention span, I'll watch a trailer and then later on, maybe while I'm in the process of watching something, I'm like, all right, that was in the trailer. Oh, that's so interesting. Or a lot of times it'll be long enough where I'm like, oh man, I completely forgot about that, you know? So, because I'm not one of those people who watches trailers multiple times, but nevertheless, let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. But really, that's all I want to talk about in this video. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good